we have people that just can't afford to live. It's not unheard of for Natalie and I to go to Costco and spend over $1,000. And we look at our cart and like, what did we buy?
Nothing.
It worked out to being like, and our carbon footprint, it was like 0.3 of the 0.1 of the 0.1%. He was going down the population. He goes, it's the equivalent of putting a piece of rice on their bridge and saying, oh, we got to clean the whole bridge because it's dirty. Our carbon footprint, if you actually ran the numbers, based on the amount of trees we have in Canada, is negative. The LGBTQ community are asking him to step down. Even if you have a good job, with these interest rate increases, if you bought a house in 21, the article talked about the delinquencies. The reason why people are opting for this medically assisted suicide is that they can't make the payments. Jagmeet and JT need to go. Use other people's countries as an example, what can make Canada great again. And let's finish on that.
Hello and welcome back to the DC Talks podcast. This is episode 89. 11 more episodes to go until the milestone of episode 100. I'm with the main man, David Chinelli. Finally get Elise in the back.
Elise in the house.
Elise in the house. It's good to have her back. But DC, man, how you doing, man?
Good. Today's the day I want to ask me about real estate. That's why I got the t-shirt on.
Yes.
So I'm feeling good, feeling the hype.
As I was saying, I admire your passion for real estate.
As Elise started laughing in the background.
Elise started chuckling in the background. It's very infectious, and I love seeing that. Seeing you so passionate about it.
Well, it's a career which I finally got into that I can wrap my hands around, that I know I can excel in, that I love. Like one of our guests coming up in I think maybe next episode, Nathan, and we had some scotch the other day. He came over, and it's been years since we sat down, and he brought some really good scotch, and we were there until almost 4 a.m. in the morning talking about everything about life. And one thing he has mentioned, he goes, and like he's a professor at U of T. He does a ton of research.
Is this big Nate?
Yeah, 6'7".
6'8".
So he's like, so we'll do his episode next. And God, like the stuff we talked about. Again, we were there until almost 4 a.m. He got over the house at 8. So we were there just chatting, and he goes, the one thing I love about you is, like, first of all, your passion for it, because he goes, I did a ton of research. And he goes, when I saw your analytics, he goes, because I also love the economy, about like the economics behind the numbers. Like our brokerage will send us a whole bunch of numbers and stuff too, and I'll look at them, but I also like to do my own research about that too. I'm always kind of trying to find articles and post things which matter to me. And he's like, that's what I love about it, right? He goes, first of all, anybody can spew anything that somebody tells you. But he goes, but he was interviewing some other realtors, and he's like, they weren't giving him any analytics. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how can you talk to somebody without knowing the average prices are, what the increase or decrease, the pitfalls, what you're seeing in the market? I'm listing a house today, and I was talking to the kids. They're debating whether to sell the house, maybe buy the parents' house, which we're listing now. And I sat with them, like, listen, like, because it's the last minute, I usually do a competitive market analysis, on my own. I'll present it to you. I'm like, let's do it together. Like, I will run the numbers together, but I will show you where the numbers came from, because the idea is I like to take out all of the emotion when it comes to listing a price, and we'll get a number at the end of the day. And if it like stays in there in the realm, that tells you the prices. But the idea is taking the passion out. So I went, I'm like, okay, bedrooms are worth this much in this area. So if you have 3 bedrooms and you have a 4-bedroom, it's worth X amount more. If you have a garage or 2-car garage, only have a 1-car garage, you have the plus and minus depending on the bathrooms. And literally at the end of the day, they looked at it like, no one's ever done those numbers for us. And they bought and sold like 2 or 3 times already. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And that's what the question comes to me. And I'm like, what are these other realtors doing? Like, you have to, when you're listing a house and you're going to somebody you got to think about it, you're living in this house. Most people have an emotional attachment to this house.
Yeah.
So my job is to remove that emotional attachment and show you what the market, because buyers, I'm trying to play on their emotional attachment, but the price brings them in the house. So we have to have that, emotional detachment in order to price it correctly and expect, and manage your expectations.
Is that's just a testament to you being a master of your craft. I was watching
and I'm still trying to work on it. That's the other thing. You can start to be like good at what your job, but it's when you rest on your laurels and you don't continue to learn every single day, that's where you get left in the dust completely.
Yeah. And you make it look easy. But the reason you make it look easy is because you put the work in the background, right? That nobody sees, the studying, the learning. I was actually watching a clip yesterday on TikTok. This guy was saying, to be really successful at the top of your game, you got to have like the mentality of he compared players like, okay, Kobe Bryant, and then you have guys like, Premier League James Miller. You might not be familiar with this guy, but these guys put in reps and reps and reps and reps and reps and reps. So when they get in front of the crowd, we're just looking at their highlights.
Yeah.
But for them to pull off that highlight, it's taking years of study. So it's just subconscious when they do it. It's like, wow, how do they make it look so easy? So coming back to you putting in the time to do more than what the average realtor does, that's what sets you apart from and that's why I was saying I'm passionate about your Ask Me About Real Estate t-shirt.
It's like that, like that saying, when you hire a plumber and he comes in, he looks at the pipes and he sits there and he hits it a couple of times, it turns a knob and he goes, okay, that'll be $400. So
Yeah.
But you're only here for 5 minutes. He goes, yeah, but I spent 30 years building this craft that I know that somebody could come in here, spend 4 hours and not fix it.
Yeah.
But you really want to spend that time because you're paying for my years of expertise. The same thing I remember when Natalie was doing her photo shoots, like she'd have these mini sessions and they were like, I think 15 minutes or half an hour, 30 minutes. And she would say the price. And some people would be like, well, your price is a little more expensive. Somebody's giving a full shoot. And he's like, okay. So in the 15, 20 minutes, she gave them more usable pictures than somebody would spend 2-3 hours. And she's like, again, these are mini sessions for me. So you're only getting 10 pictures, but you probably can choose 40. Like there were so many of them, like, I don't even know how to choose the 40.
Yeah.
Where somebody would go to spend 2-3 hours and they're like, I can't even, there's not even 10 to get 10 good ones to choose. So again, like she would always use that line and it was true. I'm like, yeah, you're paying for my expertise.
Yeah.
The years of expertise.
And
that's what leads us to this topic today.
I was just segue in there. Yeah. So you as an expert in real estate.
Yeah.
At this time of this recording, it's Wednesday, September the 4th. And the Bank of Canada just announced that they're cutting down the rates today.
Yes.
25 points basis, 4%.
25 basis points, correct. Yes. In case you don't know what basis points is, it's a 0.25% of the overnight rate. There was a 80% chance they were going to cut 25 basis points. There was only about a 20% chance they were going to cut 50%. But a lot of economists and people were pushing for that. And I was one of them. We were pushing for that 50 basis points cut, right? We had a meeting this morning, which I mentored some of the other realtors, and we were saying some of the articles are saying by next year. Right now, we're at what, 4.25? Is that right, Elise? The overnight rate, I think it is. The overnight rate is at 4.25? 4.25. And they're calling for another 2% cut by next year, maybe 2.25. I'm like, why are they're dragging their heels, right? Like they hammered us with this inflation because inflation got out of hand. And now they're just tiptoeing. Even last year, I said, we had this conversation. Last year, the market, the real estate market was starting to recover a little bit from the 4% increases we had overnight, right? Like basically overnight. They just kept hammering us. And the one thing is I've learned from my economics classes or working as an analyst, when an interest rate cut or increase happens, the full effect doesn't take effect until 18 to 24 months after that interest rate announcement. Well, the government just kept saying, well, inflation's not changing within the cuts, and they kept increasing. And again, it didn't start to take its full effect until like last year, September last year. Sorry, until, I think it was September the year before. But then last year, the market started to rebound. Like, okay, they kind of wrapped their heads around the interest rate, the 4% increase we had, or 4+ we had. And they went in June and July, had 2 additional quarter of a point increases. And that absolutely decimated our real estate market. In the height of 2021, which is the most amount of sales we've had, we had over 121, almost 122,000 sales in the GTA, in the Toronto Real Estate Board, right, which is in the GTA. By comparison, last year, we had, 68,000 sales around that? It's under 70,000 sales. And we have over 70,000 realtors, right? It was the worst amount of sales, the least amount of sales we had in over 2 decades. I think it was 20, 23 years. I think the worst, I think it was the last time we had that least amount of sales was 2020. Now you have to factor in population growth, right? And all the people come in, immigration,
no jobs.
And so I'm saying from 2000, we've had more people. So per capita, it's even worse. I think Urbanation was saying it was something in the 1990s, the least amount per capita of sales we've had. And a lot had to do with that 2 increases of interest rates. So, like, Dave, why do you care? So that means the market's coming down. Finally, buyers have power. Well, it's like, whoa, hold on a second here, right? Like, I don't think people realize how much the real estate market affects Canadians, and especially Ontarians. This is why I was pushing back. When we had a 25 basis point cut, it's not enough. And I think we're biased here because, well, we're one of the engines that runs Canada. When you look at the real estate market, there's us and there's the BC does, like Vancouver, Toronto in particular. And when you see stats, like I posted last week about the amount of mortgages we have that are in delinquency. I don't know if you read that article. So stories came out, and if you saw it was on my TikTok, it was on my Instagram, it was on all.
A little green screen on that.
Yeah. And I'll read it out here. So it's from Stories, and it was posted. Mortgages in severe delinquency have surged 67% in Ontario. Now, the report is from Equifax, found that the cost of living and rising unemployment have led to delinquency has surged in the province. So this is Ontario. Though nationally, rates remain below pre-pandemic numbers, so pre-pandemic levels. But when you're looking at, if you're the federal government, or if you're like, the Bank of Canada, well, you got to look at your top drivers, like who's running the economy. So if there's delinquencies in smaller markets, it doesn't have the overall effect to our CPI. It doesn't have the overall effect to the overall economy in Canada, the overall Canadian dollar, which is like, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it was up. What was it? So there are over 3,000 mortgages amounted to $1.3 billion, right? That represents a 66.8% increase in severe delinquencies since last year. That's huge.
That's massive.
Yeah.
I was going to say, okay.
You're allowed to talk now.
Yeah. To put into the context, right? When you're looking at this and you're saying it's not enough, when this rate cut was announced, were you expecting it to be something like different? Like,
no, I was fully expecting, because I'm just not a fan of the Bank of Canada. I just don't think they've helped. I knew they were going to do a 0.25.
Nothing.
They were just going to do, no, listen, the worst thing in the world they could have done is no interest rate cut. And the second worst thing they would have decimated us would have been another increase.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no need for an increase. Inflation's not a number. Like, we have record high unemployment right now. So why does that matter, right? Like, why are we looking at Ontario and saying, like, well, what's going on here? Like, well, we have people that just can't afford to live. That 50 basis point doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge when it comes to people looking to purchase mortgage. If you have a line of credit, even if you're renting, we have people that can't afford to live. Grocery prices are blowing up like crazy. Every time I go to Costco with my family,
Costco bill is even higher.
Oh, it's $1,000. Last time we went was $1,000. Granted, the kids got some school supplies. Maybe it's around $800.
Yeah.
It used to be $450
At Costco.
At Costco.
Yeah.
And then, like, within a year, maybe around $600, and then it skyrocketed. Like, it's not unheard of for Natalie and I to go to Costco and spend over $1,000. And we look at our cart, I'm like, what did we buy?
Nothing.
We were buying like electronics. We weren't buying stuff too. I'm buying meat and cheese
and ketchup.
You know what I mean?
Ketchup is like $40 now if you buy that bulk.
Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
Like, nuts. Like, I know we're a little nuts,
Kirkland,
but I'm saying, but nuts. Like, a fucking bag of nuts is like $40. I'm like, what the hell, man?
Trust me. Like, the grocery bag now that I bring back home compared to like what it was, it's night and day.
Oh yeah.
And
heaven forbid you forget your bag at home. And you have to buy those shitty ass bags.
And now it's creating
it's
creating the same problem with the bags of bags. You know how you get to the plastic bags and you put in the plastic bag and then you have like a whole thing? Now I'm having these reusable bags having the same problem again.
And those bags were reusable. We use them for kitty litter. Yeah. We use them to send
everything. The bathroom garbage.
The garbage.
Yeah.
Like, it was so stupid. And did you know the carbon footprint, which everyone's worried about the stupid carbon footprint? Bullshit. The carbon footprint for them to create those bags is like, I think it's 8 or 10 times worse than creating plastic bags. Unbelievable. And you heard before we get off the way, we'll go back to the econ. It's like, you hear about plastics, the paper straws, they're toxic. Bro, like, they're literally killing us. like literally killing us.
I have this idea that I feel like as a nation or as a populace, I think we just regressed in intellect. Like, we're making decisions just don't make sense. It's like we want to harm ourselves even more instead of pushing things forward. Like, hey, how do we make things more convenient, more cheaper? But you hear how they talk, these people, the policymakers, they're making decisions which harm everybody for the long haul. I'm like, what's the point of this?
Well, they're taxing us based on our carbon footprint, which we have no carbon footprint technically. And there's this guy from Australia. I don't know if you saw the video. I hope you can find it. He was talking to somebody. He's like, do you know, he goes, you're all over us talking about your carbon footprint. He goes, what part of the atmosphere is made up of carbon?
Yeah.
And she couldn't answer him. And she's like, well, you're going to get into the stuff. He goes, just answer the question. What portion is, it was like 3% or something, less than 3%, I think it was. And he's like, in Australia, which was in there, it worked out to being like, and our carbon footprint, he was like 0.3 of the 0.1 of the 0.1%. He was going down the population. He's like, so basically he's like the equivalent, and I forget this, if you can find the clip and put it on there, I would love it. I'll see if I can find it. He goes, it's the equivalent of putting a piece of rice on their bridge and saying, oh, we got to clean the whole bridge because it's dirty. And it's like, when you run the numbers that way, it's like, they don't want to tell you that our carbon is actually not affecting us. The amount of that human, because the amount of, so that was like, he went from what carbon was naturally occurring in our atmosphere and how much humans have part of that. So it was like a small percentage of the 3%. It was like down, and it was like, it was such a minute amount, even Australia. And he's like, and you want to charge us for this? He goes, this is such bullshit. Now, did you also know, before we get into the other economists, what is carbon? The more carbon you have in the air, it turns arid plains into vegetative states. They're saying like the deserts are now regressing with more carbon because now the more vegetation can grow. It's actually a good thing. And what protects Canada from any carbon increases? Trees. And we have, so our carbon footprint, if you actually ran the numbers based on the amount of trees we have in Canada, is negative. So Mr. Trudeau, if our carbon footprint is negative, why are you charging us for additional carbon? It makes no sense.
See, this is what I'm saying. Like, they're doing stuff that just
But you can't run the numbers to these people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the Liberals, remember, the budget balances itself.
Yeah.
And the only way, and everybody's making more money while they say to them, like, well, you can give a little bit more. No, how about you give some of your salary to us because of your mishandling of the country? Even, did you hear about this lately? This is a new article I posted on here too. It was hilarious. I saw it on breakfast television this morning. The LGBTQ community.
What's up?
Right? Which Mr. Trudeau thought was his biggest supporter, are asking him to step down.
People are fed up.
His own
people are fed up.
that he's trying to placate, that he's trying to play into. They're telling him to step because they know the writing's on the wall that he's going to lose, and they don't want Poilievre in there. So they'd rather get a leader in there that's actually going to give Poilievre a run for this money. Because if Trudeau goes till 2025, sure, they'll get, again, he's pushing the election so everybody can have their, what's it called? Their pensions. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's trying to push another week so everybody can get their pensions, which is, you know, not constitutional, by the way, by 1 week, right? They know if he's up for election again, they're going to get decimated. Decimated. And if you are, you know, like a red flag liberal, this scares the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And I saw the LGBTQ community. I think I was like, good on you.
You know?
Good on you.
You know,
Finally, even people are standing up against it, which he thought were his own people.
yeah. I mean, they have sense actually.
But what I'm saying is that this economy is hurting us.
Yeah.
To the point that, sure, now we have a carbon tax. We have groceries that are flying over there. Like people can't afford to live. We have delinquencies in mortgages. So 50 basis points is not going to be enough. And like, well, how bad is it, right? Well, I was talking off air about like people are choosing to kill themselves using medically assisted suicide, which the government is allowing to happen in order to not being able to burden their families and live this way. We had a 30% increase in medically assisted suicides from 21 to 22. And apparently, somebody else was running this number too, and I can't find the stat. So if you can find the stat, I would love it. But since medically assisted suicides came into Canada, there's been over 80,000 people taking advantage of it. Which I don't think is an advantage anyway. But anyway, whereas compared to into the States, it's been like 1,000 or 2,000. It's like their population is 10 times folds as us. Like that just shows you how bad people are. There are people that are coming back from war, like within the army, and they're calling for aid, and you hear them on the other side is like, well, if you're in this much distress and much pain, have you thought about medically assisted suicide? It's the first questions people ask, and I'm like, I was listening on I was watching reels. I'm like, this can't be real, and I'm like, no, it's real. There's another guy in an article which somebody who he was suffering from depression. Now, depression is not a reason apparently, and mental illness is not being allowed for for the maid. It's on the docket for 2025. So unless you have physical pain or something around there to you, or an ailment, you're not allowed to have the medically assisted suicide. It has to be something else, right? But there's people like curtailing the whole system. This one guy said, he goes, well, it's not because of my, for this article, the family was pushing back on it. And he's like, he goes, because I'm deaf and I can't hear, it's affecting my life, so I want to end my life. And they granted him medically assisted suicide. His family found out about that and they jumped in and said, no, he's depressed. It has nothing to do with his hearing. So people are finding ways to kill themselves. My brother-in-law went to a food bank in Mississauga. They were running out of food. And he was like, you hear people saying, they're applying for medically assisted suicide because they don't want to be a burden on their families. They feel embarrassed by going to food banks. Food banks are running out of money. They're like begging and stuff. This is happening in Canada.
And these are regular folks. These are like the
regular folks.
People like middle class families and every.
These are people that have jobs. That have jobs and are struggling.
Give me some context here, right? So you have the regular family. The guy's making, let's say, over 6 figures. The mom's making,
you know
90.
how much it costs? Okay, so Canada CP up was up 25% adjusted from July 2024 compared to Saskatchewan. So cost of living has been up, increases. But if the cost of living is up, also the cost of detached houses and housing. So even if you have a good job, with these interest rate increases, if you bought a house in 21, the article talked about the delinquencies. The reason why people are opting for this medically assisted suicide is that they can't make the payments. You bought a house in 2021, and I was in the same boat. They told us, don't even worry about these increases. you'll be fine. Like what's the most it can go up? So I figured that, Trudeau came out and they said, oh, we won't increase it by 1%. Bank of Canada said, don't worry about it. And they came out with 4%. So even if I factored in a 2% increase, I was still off. Like nobody thought they would go up 4%, right?
Yeah.
But then you're in a situation where you bought a house, maybe you did a 3-year mortgage, and now your mortgage is coming up, or the increases went up so fast, you can't afford it because you're already stretching yourself. Right? So now, like, what do you do? Now the groceries, everything's going up. And it just seems like
it's
an endless hole.
It's an endless cycle. So there's no point of living. So I can see how when people are so pushed to the limit, they're just finding a way to eject themselves from the situation, not to be a burden on someone.
And that is the most common thing for people using medically assisted suicide, besides the pain.
And these are people who
95% of people
in DC.
Wait, 95% of people had that there was pain, but the second reason why was the burden on their family.
Burden on their family. And the thing is, I don't want to judge these people. It's so easy for someone like who's not going through that to just like, wow, like, there's other options. But until you're in that situation, and there's people in my family, like I've seen who have been in severe situations, and, they just become somebody that they're not, they turn into vices like alcohol, whatever. And I'm like, I would never have thought. That's why for me, when I see that, I'm like, there's going to be a situation you might not be, you might have not thought you could be in. And then you feel like that. And now you look back and like, damn, like I now know why that person who was facing all that like financial burden on their family, why they're doing that. And it's scary that regular people who, and then that's the thing too, people who are homeless, I've realized that too, like these were like regular people that were faced with situations like this they're just so squeezed that they end up homeless.
People always assume it's like drug addiction.
It's not always.
There is a large faction of people that are addicted that are obviously homeless and and there's mental issues and that side, but it's not always the case. I've heard of people living in their cars and stuff. Well, now like you've seen the commercials on TV like saying every child needs breakfast because there's kids that just the family can't afford breakfast, and that's prevalent. There's a lot of kids. You'd be surprised. I forget the percentage they were like, and just turn on the TV and they're telling you how many kids need breakfast. They're going to school hungry.
Yeah.
But just to bring this back to you. So you're a young man,
Yeah, I'm 30.
Shit, that's young.
That's young.
Yeah. So in the GTA, if you are a single person right now and you wanted to buy, according to the numbers in the GTA, that's not even downtown Toronto proper, a $682,000 condo, which is average. Actually, if you're downtown Toronto, that's a steal. But anyway, so 680, just under $700,000. What do you think your household income needs to be for you to qualify for this mortgage?
For under 700K?
Yeah, 682.
120
Close, 137,000. And most people buy
collectively.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, yeah. So if you have a couple, if you were even $6,000, like again, 682,000. Most of the time, you're thinking about that. Those are smaller units. It's probably
that's like a one bed.
yeah. I'm assuming it's a single person, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you want to buy a condo in the GTA, and that's GTA, right? So if you go like place in Mississauga, you can get something like even outskirts of downtown Toronto. Like sure, you can get 400, 500,000. That's the average, right? Now townhouses around just under 800,000. I have not seen a townhouse in Toronto under 800,000, but I'm just saying this is GTA. Then it bumps up to $157,000. Okay, so your family can live in that. Great. Single family attached home, so that's a semi-detached, let's call it, right? So that bumps you up to now you're at about $1,043,000. Again, semi-detached, $1,043,000. Good luck. But anyway, if you're looking Toronto proper, what do you think your average price is or your income needs to be?
At that point, 210.
You're almost bang on, 208,000. Not a boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nice. And we'll finish off with this. So, if you are an aspiring young man and you want to buy a single detached home, the average sale price is just under 1.4, 136. The amount you need to make, what do you think?
285.
You're close, 269. So, running those numbers down, I'm scared for my kids. Thank God we started buying condos now. Like I said, we have 4 condos which we use as rental properties. The idea is that we have a deposit for them. We have down payment. They don't have to worry about stuff. But again, I want them to pay. Guys, don't just buy your kids a place and let them live for free. That doesn't teach them a fucking thing. I'm sorry. My advice,
incentive.
Yeah, my advice is buy a condo or something like that, which maybe they want to live later on, or eventually, or use it as a stepping stone, sell it and buy until they're actually ready to move in. But you pay the down payment, the 20%, wherever it needs to be, and you made the maintenance fees, you rent it out until they're ready to move in. When they move in, they pay the mortgage and the maintenance fees. You can't afford that, then you're out. Then I'm going to rent it back out to or I'm going to sell it. Don't just give your kids a house. Okay. Help them with the down payment. Start now so you can build some equity in the property, that you have some skin in the game. But they also need some skin in the game because, again, this is how the kids are going to be able to afford the future. You don't want your kids being stuck in a situation where people are using medically assisted suicide because they can't afford groceries or anything else, or food. If you have the means. Now, not everybody has the means to do that. But if you have the means and you find now it's a great opportunity, I think in the GTA to buy, especially the downtown core, the prices have been dropping. I think it was May, there was something like 95% increases in condos. And the reason for that was twofold. Your buddy Trudeau, again, increased the capital gains from 50% to 66.6%, right? So a lot of people started flooding the market with their condos, right? So that was one of the reasons. 2, people can't afford them. 3, there's all of the laws right now are in the tenants' favor. So tenants are now squatting. And instead of having to deal with them, they're filing for bankruptcy. People are just deciding to sell the condos. So we had a flood and obviously the interest rates are high and carrying costs of them is high. And if you have asshole tenants, they're just getting rid of them. So if you are smart, you have cash on hand and you want to do something with it, again, with an investment property, you have to put 20% down no matter what, even if it's under $1 million. If it's your principal residence, over $1 million, you have to put 20% down. Okay, that's the difference. But as an investment property, do that. But there is a lot of product out there, a lot. So think about it.
So to sum it up, your overall sentiment around the rate cuts, right? Because
it's not enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
I was actually reading about in the article here on Yahoo Finance for just some context, because people are wondering, okay, how does this affect me if I'm not buying a house? What does it really mean? So for example, here they say, with a variable rate mortgage, for every 100,000, a 25 basis point cut shaves about $15 off a monthly payment. So to give context to what David is saying, is it's like, that's why he's saying it's not enough. On a $600,000 mortgage, the monthly savings would be around $90, right? With
Yeah,
three
I just
cuts,
told you going to Costco it's $1,000. $90 is a drop in the bucket.
exactly. With 3 cuts totaling a 0.75 percentage point drop, monthly savings would approach around $270. So
Yeah, but just to put context, my mortgage payments haven't changed.
So it just sounds like they're just dangling. Hey, we cut the
Oh,
rates.
we're doing something for you to help
We're doing
you.
something, but it's just like it's a smoke screen.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting from this whole rate.
And you're
cut.
not going to get down to sub 2% mortgage rates probably
Yeah.
ever again in our lifetime because that just happened quickly, and it never should have gone there. Right.
So is that why you as a realtor, you're like, okay, if my clients reach out to me about this, I'm just going to tell them, you're not really going to spot a difference or anything with these rate cuts. It's just it's same as yesterday.
Well, people are waiting for interest rates to drop, and it's like, no, you want the prices to drop. That's it. It's now is a good time to buy because if you're saving $50,000, a couple of interest rates cuts is not going to affect you. It doesn't even affect your payment. What's going to affect your payment is buying now and getting a better deal.
Yeah.
And then if by next year those interest rate drops another 2%, I know we're supposed to wrap up, but 2%, you're not going to make up that $50,000 of the drop in the price. And you're going to be paying more money just because your interest rates went down. It just doesn't make sense.
Just 2 more minutes. I just got to say something that I'm realizing, because I know like you've chatted and I'm just now formulating my thinking now.
Took you long enough.
There you go. Freaking. So think about it like this. Regardless which path you choose, if you're working and you want to start a business, let's say as a business owner or whatever, even if you try and sell your product out there, it's not even harder to get like the customers and let's say clients or whatever, because nobody can afford it. No one can buy it. You try and get a job, you're trying to get a raise. They can't afford to give you a raise. They're actually looking to lay you off. So wherever you go, wherever you stand, you're kind of just in this mode where when you're like in a tunnel and you're trying to like just shiver. That's what it feels like.
Pretty much.
And the scary part is there's nothing in the horizon which we can say, hey, like this is going to change. This is going to happen.
The only thing I could see help changing is and I know the liberals won't want to hear this, but Polyev said one of the smartest things I've heard him say. And he's like, we need to cut income tax. And Charlie Kirk talked about this as well. So Charlie Kirk goes around campuses. He talks to people, a lot of liberals and stuff too. And he's like, and somebody was saying about like the socialist countries, and he brought this point up, and he's like, tell me all these socialist countries in Europe, whether it's Sweden, all these other stuff. And he goes, how many billionaires do they have? Anybody who's taxed over 50%, 54%, that they're giving the wealth from the rich and giving to the wealth. How many billionaires are in there? They're like, none. He goes, in the US, where their tax rate is, income tax, I think is 30%. I forget, I don't know the number. And he goes, look how many they have there. Tons. They have one like, even if you look at Bezos, you're looking at, what's it called? Elon Musk, I guess I don't know if he's American. Bezos, what's it from Facebook? Zuckerberg. Bill Gates. And the list goes on and on. Berkshire Hathaway, what's his name? What the old man? I can't remember his name. Anyway. Warren Buffett. Sorry, my brain is, we're supposed to wrap it up. So anyway, my point is like, because the interest rates, the income tax is so low for them, people want to go to the US and build an economy there. If you start to increase income, you are basically killing any of your economy, because why would you want to build a business there? That's what's happening in Canada. So Polyev recognizes that, which hate Polyev, whatever, but let him see if he actually does that. I would put him in government just because of that statement. If you can put that in writing, that you are going to decrease our income tax from 54%, if you're in the top bracket, to 35%, I'm in.
Yeah.
Think how much savings that have. Because what happens is redistribution of wealth. Right? Not only can people afford to live, it's a risk. You're going to distribute it to somebody else. And the one thing, I know people don't like Trump, and I watch, and it's fine, but what he did was there was a tax bracket, and this one guy was talking before how he was a Democrat before, now he's a Republican, and he was under the Democratic regime, under Obamacare. He couldn't even pay for insurance because he was getting hammered. He goes, this has nothing to do with Trump. He goes, but when Trump came in, he was a tax break, and he was working for Costco, which, by the way, is a Democratic following country. They're very leftist. Because of the interest rate cuts, they saved so much money that they gave bonuses to all of their employees that they're able to live. So I know people talk about what has Trump done. I'm like, well, that's one policy he did, which again, like him or not, that's a policy that actually helped
he gets
the
things
American
done.
people. So why are we holding on to Justin Trudeau? Why is Jagmeet Singh not forcing an election to get this guy out? He is killing our economy. And Jagmeet Singh should be also crucified as well because he's allowing this to happen. I think that he also needs to be stepped down as an NDP leader because he's also fucking our country. So Jagmeet and JT need to go. And I think they need to, whoever the next person is, I think they need to adopt, if you don't like Polyev, but at least use his income tax. Use other people's countries as an example, what can make Canada great again. And let's finish on that.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 89. Hope you got to enjoy DC's thoughts on the economy, on the rate cuts. And if you have any more questions about this, make sure to message him on Instagram at DavidVChinelli_realtor. And leave a comment here on YouTube. Let us know what your thoughts are, where you are in your financial situation, where you think you want to buy, when you want to sell. Whatever that comment or question is, make sure to message us in our appropriate inboxes. And we'll see you next week for episode 90 with Mr. 6'7".
Yeah, Nathan.
Nathan.
Inocente.
All right, everyone. Talk to you soon. Peace out.